Hello everyone, this is Abhi Bardwaj and I'm back with lecture series on science. Today we are going to focus on antibiotics and how antibiotics are posing the greatest threat to the humanity actually in coming decades. So let's get started. Discovery of antibiotics was one of the most important discovery by Alexander Fleming in 1929. And it has saved us from many different diseases, the small diseases which used to kill us because we did not have any protection against them. And definitely this discovery was one of the most important discovery in human history, which saved millions and millions of lives. The problem, however, now is that overuse of antibiotics is making many bacteria resistant to it. So when you look at the main problems, then you find out that it's twofold. One is that overusage of antibiotics by humans when it's not required. For instance, many countries would not restrict or control prescription of antibiotics by doctors, and what happens is that anybody can go and buy the antibiotics for any disease from just pharmacies and use it without knowing the long-term impact of use of antibiotics. And also when doctors in many developing countries prescribe antibiotics, they normally would not perform any tests that if it is a bacterial infection or is it viral. So many private practitioners I've seen, especially other Asian countries and African countries, in general the developing countries, there's no such restriction. And what happens is that in general population then can buy and use antibiotics as desired. What happens with this kind of issue is that the bacteria starts getting resistant to antibiotics, or that's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is much bigger than this, and that is by mostly developed countries, I would say, where animal industry which produces meat, for example, cows, poultry, different kind of animals, they also overutilize antibiotics to keep these animals healthy and and commercialize this industry. And because of that, there's a widespread usage of antibiotics within animal industry. I'll just give you an example. For instance, in US, 80% of the antibiotics consumption done throughout the country used by animal farming, and rest 20 is by human consumption. And what it does is it basically leads to the leakage of antibiotics into not only the food, for example meat or any animal products, milk, meat, any other animal products, and then it's consumed by humans, and it causes the bacterial resistance in humans. It also leads to pollute wastewater plants where this water is being treated, and it finds its way to through sewage and wastewater. It also goes and reaches the surface water, rivers, lakes, and marine environment. So it is having much more wider impact globally. But one more important factor is that now the developing countries, for example India, China, all these countries who are developing fast, their income is growing as well, and many of the populations which were dependent on vegetarian diet before, like rice, barley, pulses, all that stuff, are actually shifting to non-vegetarian diet. And it's also leading the same issue in developing countries as well, because they have also started using antibiotics to keep these animals healthy so that they could sell the meat products in the end. So it's also increasing in all these developing countries now. For instance, if you look at the consumption of antibiotics in year 2010, it was about 63,000 tons. But it's projected to actually increase about 70% by year 2030, which means there would be about 106,000 tons of antibiotics. So there'll be huge jump in use of antibiotics. What it would do is, we are already seeing, and we have seen the evidence in our laboratory studies, that especially there was a study done in European countries, Holland, Switzerland, Norway, many other countries, about 6 countries. The studies was done in Europe, which they concluded that usage of antibiotics within poultry and cows led to actually resistance of certain kind of bacteria, developing resistance against these antibiotics. And there was a connection which was found between animal resistance and antibiotic resistance within humans. So there's a strong link that all this leads to, in the end, the resistance of these bacteria to many antibiotics. The problem with this is that this would create superbugs, and it's already have started doing that, which would be very hard to treat. By 2050, has been projected that deaths by these kind of bacteria would increase many fold. So what we need to do as humanity is look into this threat to humanity, because if we will not be able to treat people with the antibiotics we have, and we do not have any advanced antibiotics created by that time, then many people would start dying by small infections, as we used to do before the discovery of antibiotics before 1929. So most important part is that governments and countries have look at this problem collectively and try to encourage vegetarian diet more, because most of the antibiotics used currently are within animal farm industry. So we have to make sure people shift from non-vegetarian diet, which anyhow is very unhealthy diet, causing many cardiovascular diseases, many different diseases. So we have to make our society more healthy. I think we need to push for more vegetarian diet, and that would definitely help reduction of antibiotics within farm industry. Other part I want to talk about is that we should also limit the prescription of antibiotics to only diseases which are actually tested. So patients should be tested before they prescribed any antibiotics. It should not be used as a wonder drug, where you just prescribe antibiotic and think that it's a bacterial infection and somehow would get cured. These kind of issues can actually create a very huge problem by making these bacteria resistant to antibiotics. And that was the purpose of this video today. Every one of us realized the importance of this problem, which is coming to humanity very soon, where we have to deal with all these superbugs, and our antibiotics would stop working. We need to do something before. Definitely there is one area where we need to do research on creating more potent antibiotics. But on the other hand, we also has to make sure that we are responsible for this problem as a human race, and we have to think collectively and make sure that we try to change our eating habits and become more and more vegetarian. Thank you for watching.